So we have to start today the Specific Relief Act. On last lecture, we were discussing the remedies, how legal rights are of no use and no worth unless some remedy to enforce rights is provided by the law. We also discussed the various forms of the reliefs. Reliefs in nature of damages, reliefs in nature of compensation, reliefs in nature of the injunctions, reliefs in nature of the declaratory decrees, reliefs in nature of writ jurisdiction, writs, 5 writs. These all are the modes and are used for enforcement of your legal rights or the fundamental rights in case of the writs. These are the remedies in general. Apart from these remedies, some remedies may be provided by or under the contract which the parties are subject. If the parties have opted a mechanism for resolution of their redress, so that mechanism has to be followed. For example, arbitration. Contract between the parties may be in the nature that if in case of any default, the faulty party will pay so much of the amount or anything else as a compensation or as a penalty. So apart from these basic remedies, some other forms of remedies may be there arising out of the contract. So such remedies which do not fall under these general heads of the remedies are called remedies arising out of the contract or the remedies under the contract. The better term would be remedies available under the contract. For enforcement of the fundamental rights, the Constitution, Article 32 and 226, Article 226 and 32 gives immense power to the High Courts and the Supreme Court for issuing writs or any order or direction, including writs. For what? For ensuring the enforcement of the fundamental rights. Other remedies are the remedies which have been created during the course of adjudication, not only in India but in other countries like Britain, from where we have borrowed a lot of law, and that was the Court of Equity. Equity courts in England granted such relief, injunction, declaration. So these type of the general remedies are creation of the equity courts in England, and our legal system followed uh, these principles in India. That's why when you go through the civil law and read the any portion of the civil law historical perspective, you find that compensation was awarded, damages were claimed. But under what law? You will hardly find any law under which this damages was claimed. You will hardly find the law under which the compensation was claimed. You will hardly find a law under which the any declaration or something else was sought. But it was done by Indian courts. The history is evident of this fact. Keeping in mind the entire scenario, Indian Parliament in 1963 passed this Specific Relief Act. The Specific Relief Act 1963. Why specific? Relief, it can be understood, but why specific relief? Why not general relief? The term itself shows that this law, this statute deal with the reliefs which are of specific in nature. Then there must be a difference between the specific reliefs and the non-specific reliefs. Whatever we discussed earlier are the non-specific reliefs, or you can say the general reliefs. General reliefs, the source of general reliefs may be the statute. Some statute may have given you some right. Some contract may have given you some right, or the general law of the land may have given you the rights to claim compensation, damages, etc. So, broadly speaking, you have to now divide the reliefs under law under two heads. Number one is the general reliefs, and number two is the specific relief. And again, it is astonishing to know there is no General Relief Act. In India, there is no General Relief Act where you could be able to find all the reliefs which can be sought from the court. So, without disturbing the reliefs or the theory of the reliefs evolved during a long journey following the equity courts in England, instead of disturbing the system which was evolved in India, the Indian Parliament deliberately passed the Specific Relief Act. Means whatever the general reliefs which a person is entitled will continue to be entitled for those reliefs. But apart from these general reliefs, or you can say out of these general reliefs, some reliefs of specific nature which must be given immediately were covered under this specific relief act. So first and foremost point of discussion is the specific relief is distinguished from general reliefs, or specific reliefs are those reliefs which are specific in nature and are one of the or have been one of the general reliefs. ऐसे रिलीफ जो अभी तक जनरल रिलीफ थे लेकिन इस कानून के बनने के बाद उन्हें स्पेसिफिक बना दिया गया। ऐसे कौन से रिलीफ्स हैं जो स्पेसिफिक होंगे? अगर ए बी के मकान में फोर्सिबली एंटर कर जाता है, बी इज द ओनर, he is residing in his house, he went for a vacation and taking benefit of this situation, A never entered in the house of the B, and in this way B is the dispossessed. Then what are the remedies available to this person, owner A? You will say he should go to the court and claim possession. This is the general relief. If somebody has been dispossessed, he cannot be forcibly possessed again. A forcible dispossession cannot be restored back by the forcible possession. So law does not permit. Law does not empower the police or any other agency which must come to help you out and put you in possession in your own house which you were in possession for years. Suppose this man goes to the court, and it happens in India. That's why in 1963 this act was passed. Such dispossessed person approaches the court. Where, under what law he will approach the court? Under Civil Procedure Code, he has to file a suit. Under section 9 of the CPC, every suit of civil nature, the civil court will have the jurisdiction. So no doubt this is a civil cause. Cause of action is of civil nature. Civil rights have been infringed. So he filed the suit. Now B comes and says, A is not the owner. He is not saying under what circumstances he is holding the possession. He is just saying A is not the owner. A cannot take the possession. So under civil law, now it will be a debatable issue whether A is the owner or the not. And if this issue is framed whether A is the owner of the property, then now burden lies upon the A to prove it. Now A is going here and there collecting the evidence to prove that I am the owner. It was bought by my father or the grandfather, or anyhow it reached to me. And B is just saying, no, he is not the owner. This will is the forged, which if A comes with a version that his grandfather purchased it and gifted it, B just saying it is a forged deed. He has no right to gift. So many excuses could have been taken and we have taken. What would be the result? A is striving to get the possession of his own house and roaming in the court from here and there. and showing all the evidences that I am the owner. Then court decides it after a long journey. Then we will go to the appeal. Then we will file appeal that lower court has not decided it rightly. Again, a litigation, I hate. Then after finality of the judgment or the decree, then it comes to the execution. Again a new chapter of the litigation. So if he is at the age of 35 or 30 years, I don't think that he would be able to get the possession of his house in his lifetime, because matter will be kept pending for so many reasons. I will not go into that detail, but you see the scene where real owner is striving for possession of his house. So deal with such type of the urgent cases. This remedy to get the possession back was provided by this specific fact, and Act said this would be a specific relief which can be claimed if a person has been dispossessed from his property. What is needed to succeed in such proceeding? Title is not going to decide. The plaintiff has just to prove the dispossession. Plaintiff has to prove that he was in possession and unauthorizedly, illegally, the defendant has dispossessed me. If only this fact is to be proved before the court, it is an easier task in comparison with the previous suit or regular suit, having opened the vast area of litigation. So this type of the remedy, which were general in nature, now became specific by virtue of this specific relief act. So filing suit for restoring back the possession of the property lost is a specific relief in nature and can be filed under section 6, which I will come on it, of the specific relief act, and it does not bar the litigation for other causes. If whoever may be in possession, if he has wants some right or has some right, he may file the suit under section 9 of the CPC and may contest. But plaintiff can win and will win, certainly win, because this will be a proceeding of a summary nature, where dispossession is to be proved and court will make an order. So area of litigation will be very much minimized. The result would be the plaintiff will be able to get the assistance of the court as early as possible. And for apart from this dispossession, illegal dispossession, if litigation involves other issues, then it is open to the parties to file a proceeding under section 9 of the CPC, which has the vast maximum scope for the litigation or the pleas. So plea for the litigation under specific relief act is a very limited one.